Hey, it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful, empowered harmonizers. We are zooming in and focusing in on a great viewer question, and that is, how do I handle the unpredictability of the narcissist? They're sort of all over the place, and I really feel like they are running the show. How can I handle this? So I totally get that question. It's a great viewer question because when you're in a relationship with a narcissist or a psychopath, someone who has a pathological sense of self-importance and sort of coupled with a lack of empathy, they're not sort of tapping into or putting priority or importance or even just sort of existence into your viewpoint. In other words, it's irrelevant, it's unimportant, it's not a factor. So a lot of people feel unacknowledged, unvalidated, and then mistreated, especially when things become to be covert. And, they will sort of stall out or not be happy for you when, they kind of should be. In other words, you are trying to share something positive. You're trying to keep the relationship light and positive for both of you. And then it can be shocking and disturbing if the narcissist or psychopath is not supportive the way that they should be of what you're going through, what's important to you, whether it's an accomplishment that you're trying to share, or an epiphany, or an emotional breakdown, or something, just a question. Oftentimes, they won't pick up on it when they're really sort of on their, on their flow, on their, their jet set life, which you can basically understand that a narcissist is always operating in that insatiable need for power and control. So it doesn't ever get satisfied. So you don't maybe get the experiences of content or kind of coexistence in a way that it brings togetherness or feeling that you're understood or belong, and then that will give you the comfort and certainty that you're looking for. But especially in sort of growth pains for yourself, growth pains with this other individual or whatever it is that they're getting into, oftentimes they will be very provocative or provoke or seek to sort of provoke negative reactions out of you. So if you lose your cool, you lose your S, things begin to come unhinged, undone, and you're losing it. That becomes disempowering for you. So then you can't really, focus on keeping them in check. Things get off-centered very quickly. So it's a real tactic that someone who is psychopathic or, I would say more malignant narcissist will sort of do, which is very confusing for a lot of people. It creates a lot of fog, fear, obligation, and guilt, as well as confusion. And, and oftentimes, when it gets really bad, it can bring out the worst of others if it's not kept in check. In other words, they'll become an energetic match to that uncertainty. And then they'll feel that they have to sort of give it back. I'm no longer, getting hit by the S on the fan. I'm, putting the S behind the fan, and it's going to come to you. So people then might be very, I would call it like a knee-jerk reaction or an emotional spew that they then, get out of control. They fall for the bait. They fall for that narcissistic ego, which is wanting to be very inconsistent or, just sort of unknown, like a moving target, because that's just how they are. That's how they roll. They don't always clue in, other people, oftentimes with significant, important things, but more so we're talking about the lack of validation that they give to you that creates that uncertainty, and how hurtful that is, because oftentimes you might have felt that you're constantly doing it for them as well. You're usually the support figure, you're the supply, you're the ego stroke, especially if then people who are in close relationships with them have an abundance of empathy and an abundance of heart and, an ability to sacrifice for you. Oftentimes this creates a lot of uncertainty or tension or sort of emotional instability. And so then you've got a lot of moving targets going on, and then it can become intolerable. So realize that if this is occurring and it's causing you to be upset, feel unhappy. It might even get into the degree of not hatred, but sort of bringing out a very judgmental side of somebody, which creates an imbalance and a lack of peace. If there's always this judgment going on, constant evaluation, or this is good for me now, this is not good for me now, and just sort of having that sporadic nature. Realize if this is happening, I would say one of the really sort of in the devalue and discard stage where things get, kind of separate or distant and very uncomfortable for people, is that they can sort of provoke a negative state or try to create a negative state in the supply, so they lose control, and then they, sort of accept blame for being, the problem in the relationship when they are really not the problem in the relationship. It's a way to deflect and project. So especially that, I would say, not of hatred, but where they sort of, reflect back that you're not likable. They just don't give you the love. They don't give you the support. They're not feeding your ego. They're not supportive of even normal, natural things that you should have be applauded or say, oh, amen, thank you for that. These even common courtesies oftentimes are not communicated by the narcissist or the psychopath. So it becomes very debilitating for a lot of people, especially if they're used to it or need it as just a social being. I mean, it's not too big an ask. But when you talk about someone who is a malignant narcissist, it's, they have to up the ante for themselves to keep themselves on the up and up. And oftentimes for the covert, this means being elusive. This means being aloof. This means being unreachable for a period of time. They need to sort of go off into their little, narcissistic hibernation. They need to detach. They need their space. And sometimes it can be a big ask because it's depriving you of sort of being able to connect, which is what you need, that gives you that certainty. It dissolves the fear. And, if this does not happen, then you might feel that there is this deficit, sort of unfairness, and unpleasantness or unreasonable, unwarranted, lack of communication or support of you. And oftentimes it's because to support you would contradict their struggle and really oftentimes their pathological envy. They get infinitely annoyed if people challenge their ego, or don't buy them at the face value. In other words, the narcissist and the psychopath, they want you to interact with them oftentimes at their persona level, at their mask level. And you're like, I'm just trying to keep it real, or just something normal, which isn't, inflated, that isn't sort of sensationalized the way that the narcissist, sort of wants, or the psychopath sort of wants to be in that, have that specialness about them. So anything else just sort of pales in comparison. Might be the feeling. And so a lot of people feel that unsupported, and they get a fear of uncertainty. And if they get you to that level, it's very disempowering for other people to have that pulled out of them, that sort of really becomes not characteristic for them, but out of character, but if it reinforces, for over a period of time, that mood can become a temperament. That temperament can then become a trait, and then over time that trait can become an identity. So people might say, I don't like the person who I've become, or something like that, is a result of these dynamics in the relationship. And they say, this is not me. I have a degree of serenity and security within, but this creates too much drama, too much uncertainty. And realize that it's the deprivation, the lack of support, that it's their way of manipulating. It's a very covert way of manipulation. So you have to see it for what it is and not be taken aback. Try not to be offended. Try not to over accommodate again, and then try to be, self-defacing to get their love again, because that's what, people usually end up doing. They, want it like a slot, machine mentality, to have that certainty reinforced. But you need to you need to change and change that vicious cycle. You need to break the pattern. You need to realize that you don't need to always have this sort of one directional type of relationship with the narcissist, where you end up being disempowered to keep it alive, to keep it going. Basically, if they get you anxious, if this makes you feel judged, if this makes you feel that you're being ignored, blindsided, not attended to, this is going to be disempowering. Things where this unhappiness becomes disempowering. The lack of love becomes disempowering. The lack of consistency and, respect through boundaries and standards becomes, it's not hitting the target of where you need to be related to. This can create then feelings of, lack of self-respect, lack of trust of the universe. I mean, people have grand sweeping, game-changing experiences when this goes on for a prolonged period of time. So realize you are empowered and you do have certainty anyway. The ball is in your court. Do not allow this type of manipulation from a malignant narcissist or a psychopath who's an interspecies predator, who basically laughs when you fall, who applauds when you stumble, because there's really sometimes, I would say, an innate pathological envy that they have over others, and at different stages of their life. But oftentimes, especially if you're exposing them, this will be received as threatened. In other words, calling them out, making them accountable for what, anything that does not match their sort of persona. So we're talking about the real deal. The narcissist and the psychopath don't feel that they have done anything wrong, that they are entitled to behave as they are, yada yada. So it's just how they feel. And so basically your gift can be a gift of forgiveness, that you are trying to keep them in check, and your sense of certainty has to come from within. So give the gift of forgiveness to yourself, lighten it up. Don't feel that you have to be plagued by this. Be willing to identify when this uncertainty is being used as a manipulative tactic. In other words, not being there, not having the the flow of conversation the way, in other words, it's constantly disrupted or interrupted, and it's about what they need, and they're sort of ignoring you. There's a very specific dynamic, I think, that our viewer is inquiring about. And don't fall for those disempowering emotions that they oftentimes are trying to create, through the smear campaign, through triangulation, through, talking bad about you behind your back, and then trying to create, that wildfire, rumor mill, whatever you call it, water cooler talk you kind of feel is seeping out. This is karma. What you talk to others will come back. It will be exposed. It will be found out. So if anything, the narcissist should be the one who's afraid. The psychopath should be the one, but they don't feel fear. So instead, they deflect it onto you. They project it. It's just like a big shovel. It's yours. When it's like, nope, it is yours. Like, that belongs to you, and that's okay. And I give you the gift of forgiveness, that is how you are, and so be it. Namaste. I'm not responsible for your evolution, and over-sacrificing, because if there's, it's not a two-way street. So it can make, so realize that stability comes from consistency of within and trusting yourself when they have been unsupportive, can't acknowledge and validate you, cannot applaud your strengths, cannot just give a courtesy, hello, what about you? I mean, when it's really getting toxic, when it's getting like, this is really, something is off here, something is not right, and it's just like, there is an elephant in the room, pink elephant, purple, whatever it is, green, there is an elephant. You have to be able to pull the trunk. Here is the trunk. Talk to the hand. It's you have to, as the other individual, you have to stop devaluing and your own validation and being overly protective of the narcissist, because I think what ends up happening is people end up wanting to protect the narcissist. Oh, you've hurt me, but don't worry about it. Oh, it's okay. They're afraid to receive, and that becomes part of the disease. Where the other person then becomes habituated to never getting supported, and to the point where they get a crossroads in their life and they're like, yeah, this needs to be a little different. And then some, equality needs to take place for that is processed with empathy and just hearing somebody out. They are valid, but oftentimes the narcissist can be very invalidating to others. This is how they manipulate. This is how they get more power for themselves. I mean, they just, bring it on to themselves. So don't fall for that bait. If you see it dangling, don't fall for it. Allow it to just pass away, gone with the wind. Just allow it to be like the, a leaf on a stream. Let it just float on down by, and allow it to let go. Like if you're used to holding on to that for your own sort of anger or angst, realize that something of that nature might not be positive for you to hold on to, because it will bubble and seethe within. So you have to sort of uncork it. So, I think that, and so realize you deserve certainty, you deserve consistency, you deserve to be acknowledged and validated, for where you are, and not feel that, you're going to step on someone's toes or bruise someone's ego for speaking up for yourself. This is a natural thing, and it's okay to then, it'll then cause the narcissist to go down to size. You'll realize and embrace their limitations as a person. They're not capable. They're not able. And even though they want to have this big inflated sense of self for them, oftentimes that is not reality. You have to realize where, as a codependent, people then inflate their importance to them in their own life because they're so used to depriving themselves. So you have to alchemize that deficit that you felt within through forgiveness, through love, basically, which sounds like really cheesy and corny, but that's the absence of fear of yourself. The absence of fear of yourself, and know that the universe, one verse, is at peace with you when you proclaim your need to be respected, your I am, which is going to be an energetic and a real change from the way you have been relating to this individual before. It does create a need for a change of being way that you communicate, the way that what you give to them, how supportive you are or not, or it's like, whoa, I need to pull back my constant and never-ending support because it's leaving nothing for me. I'm coming up empty-handed. People feel unfair. They feel, cheated. All these, different negative emotions will become burdensome, and it can become, real inhibitors for happiness. They feel like this needs to be corrected. Well, the correction can actually come from within you. Giving your sense a self of certainty that you know that you are okay, you deserve support, and if you're not getting it there, then you get it from somewhere else. You get it from within. And you realize the incapacities or limitation of these individuals, and it's okay to see them in this light, the realistic light, even though they don't want you to, even though they want you to have a false illusion of reality or of them, because of their duplicity, because of all their brainwashing, because of their deception and their concealment. It becomes a serious issue. So it's okay to be proactive and not need to feed off of their uncertainty anymore. Don't feed off of that. It really only gives you lack of energy instead of positive self-respect. Own your self-respect. Keep your head up and have a backbone, and really, stand up for that and validate your truth. And then as you do that, you'll begin to be and feel a lot more secure, certain, and not able to be shaken up so easily by the misgivings or limitations of others, oftentimes that are oftentimes meant to sort of give you, a backhanded slap for whatever reason. It's just what they do. So don't take it personally. This is your buddy. Peace and harmony with you here today. And I hope that these videos do help. Please share, please subscribe, and for goodness sake, please donate for more great tools, videos, discussions, and support. Peace out. Peace be with you. Have a beautiful day.